Today we're joined by Tyler and Kyle Freres, the twin brothers leading Freres Engineered Wood. They'll share their journey from childhood days running around the mill to becoming key leaders in their family business. We'll explore how their company evolved from traditional lumber manufacturing.
We originally started out as a lumber manufacturer back in the 1920s.
To creating innovative engineered wood products like mass timber panels.
We went from lumber manufacturing and then we converted over to veneer manufacturing, and that's really been our specialty ever since.
We'll discuss how these advancements are allowing wood to replace steel and concrete in amazing projects.
And we are building bigger structures at much higher quality. We're just seeing the very beginning of building just amazing structures with wood.
And touch on future opportunities for younger generations in the wood products industry.
The opportunities for kids these days are legion in our industry, and I think it could be a situation where they can find a career without the load of student debt.
So welcome to the Wood World podcast. We have Jessica Johnson as our co-host from Koval. And with that, would love to get Tyler. Can we start with you, please? A little 30-second introduction. Who is Tyler? And from then we can switch over to Kyle, please.
Sure. My name is Tyler Freres. I'm VP of Sales here at Freres Engineered Wood. Typically oversee most of our product sales that we have throughout the company.
Thank you.
My name is Kyle Freres. I'm Vice President of Operations at Freres. We try to keep our responsibilities somewhat separate so we aren't stepping on each other's toes, but frankly, we work together every day, so we don't do a lot of stepping on each other's toes. We actually work pretty darn well together. I've been back at the company since 2001 after a brief stint in the tech industry.
Very cool.
All right, I have to know, because I have identical twin boys, and I know which one's first and which one's second. So who is oldest?
I have that honor by about 10 minutes. So
Okay.
I always give Tyler a hard time. It's about 10 minutes more of wisdom, but I'm not sure it really counts for much.
Oh, I constantly am like, go find your little brother, and little brother pipes up and says, it's 21 minutes. So I get it. But from my own curiosity, I did this with Casey and Kelsey too. I was like, who's number one and who's number two? Because there's always an interesting dynamic to that, I think.
Totally. Guys, well, to kick it off, we named the podcast the Wood World Podcast. And so we cover many companies, many organizations, great teams, great individuals who do a whole wide range of things inside of what we call the wood world. Could you, Tyler, please explain where does Freres fit into the wood world?
Well, so we essentially make almost all the products that we can from a tree. So we handle from the primary logging contracts. So we buy timber sales from the state, federal operators, as well as private timber holders. And then we process veneer as our primary products. So veneer being the thinner pieces of wood that comes off of a lathe. And so we have two veneer plants. We have a dry veneer merchandising facility. We have a stud mill. We have a cogen plant where we're producing electricity off of wood waste. We have our plywood and panel operations. And then we also have our mass timber facility. But even within those products, we also have all of a residual stream as well, where we're producing, sawdust, chips, shavings, but also material like biochar that's a residual product from our cogen facility, and obviously electricity from that plant as well.
And then to kind of add to that and flesh out some history, we originally started out as a lumber manufacturer back in the 1920s. In fact, we celebrated our 100th anniversary here a couple of years ago, and something we were really, really proud of. The company was started by our grandfather, T.G. Freres. Back then, it was the days of of horses doing the logging and the mill sites being up in the trees, because it was easier to take the mill to the trees and the trees to the mill. So things have changed a lot over the years. We went from lumber manufacturing until, say, the late 40s. And then we converted over to veneer manufacturing. And that's really been our specialty ever since. But we've had to innovate a lot along the way, from lumber to veneer to MetroGuard veneer to support the LVL markets, and then to panel manufacturing in the late 90s. And then, like Tyler said, our cogeneration facilities. And then finally, the last big investment we've done is in our engineered wood facility in 2016 and 17.
Yeah. Good. Anything you're curious about?
So, can you talk me through the history of you guys Kyle, you said you came from the tech industry, right? So, coming into a family business is never easy. How did you decide to make the decision to go into it? And how has it shaped your career?
So I think I always anticipated coming back to the family business. Tyler actually came back a couple years before I did, because I wanted to get some experience at another company for a while. So I kind of rode that .com era for a bit until September 11th, actually, when I was kind of stuck in Boston for a couple weeks after the World Trade Center disaster. And that really changed my mind about traveling and working in the tech industry. And it happened to be that it was a convenient time to come back and insert myself into the family business. But we've always cared, I think, deeply about our family heritage and legacy. What our grandfather started back in the 20s. It's something that we've always respected and want to be a part of. But it's daunting as well, like you said. And when we first came back, our management team, which at the time included our father, our uncle, and our cousin, had over 100 years of experience. So jumping into a business with a management team of that weight was not easy.
Okay, so Tyler, what was your path back home to Lions?
Well, I was actually a little bit more direct. Kyle and I both went to school down in Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. I chose a business and finance path for my college degree with the intent that I wanted to come back and work with the business. So I pretty much worked here every summer that I could since high school, and try to get a broad feel for all the different positions around. Kyle and I really did grow up at these facilities. We would come with our father and his El Camino back in the day, and just run around the boneyard is what we call it, but essentially all the equipment that's been pulled out, all the rusty pieces of stuff you could, and ran through all the facilities while they were shut down on the weekends. And so we really spent a lot of our youth, tied up with these facilities, and had a real intensive love for it. So anyway, I came back and right around 1998 and started in 1999. And, like with any other family business, you start getting all the grunt work that no one really wants to do, but that's how you kind of learn about all the other portions of the business. So it's been an interesting, to Kyle's point, a family business isn't easy. They expect a lot of you. They expect, and you end up putting a lot of expectations on yourself too. So you're always trying to perform in a family business because it means so much for everyone that's involved in it.
We always say you can't avoid your shareholders in the family business. You end up seeing them at every family party and every picnic. So
Yeah, that must make Christmas a little tense, maybe. Thanksgiving.
I'd love to know. I mean, not everything is always rosy, and so as you both kind of grew up and came to today, I mean, what were some of those? Can you share maybe one challenge each as an example of something that you overcame personally as you kind of grew up, and then now you're thriving in the business, but kind of those challenges, and if you could reflect back to your younger years, or I guess just as you were learning and growing through the organization. You said, you had to do the grunt work, and what does that teach a young person, and how does that shape you, your character, to allow you to be who you are today?
Tyler, you better take that one first. That's a big question.
Well, I think one of the things I really learned from some of the starting positions that I did, whether or not it was green veneer off bearing, or working in the cat shop, or logging, or any of the other short term jobs I had, is that that hourly work takes a lot of effort, and it's and they're all necessary required positions, and that you've got to take those seriously and be able to work hard and do the heavy lifting in order to stick around and actually become a value. I think one of the most forming experience that I think that we had was the 2008 and 2010 market collapse. I mean, during that period of time, the housing market collapsed from 1.7 million housing starts down to 400,000 or 300,000. It was really difficult to find any type of marketplace or market condition that we could actually operate in. And pretty much every wood products producer was out there just trying to keep their mills operating and
Right.
in motion, and trying to go through the decision-making process of how do we operate in a market that just suddenly went down to 20% of its typical operations and not lose that much money. And so to me, that was a trial by fire. And not something I'd look forward to going through again.
Okay, wait, hold on. I want to bump in real fast because you brought up something that I was curious about, and that is the lack of housing starts at a level that we have been used to. There's a serious lag. Everyone's talking about the economy. Most people can't afford a house now with interest rates where they are. Having survived that, do you think that challenge and those learnings are going to be applicable here looking down the pike of the rest of 2024 and into 2025?
Well, I think there's capacity within the wood products market to produce enough materials for a 1.8 million, 1.9 million housing starts. I don't think it's an industry problem in order to produce the materials for these homes. To me, it's a little bit more of a political problem. A lot of the costs that go into building homes, whether it could be zoning issues as far as available land being available, or essentially system development charges. By some estimates, we're hearing that about 35 to 40% of the cost of a new home is actually just due to regulatory fees. So if we really want to make housing more affordable, I think the government needs to figure out a way to be more efficient with how they put available land and developments out to the consumer.
Sorry,
But
I didn't mean to
to
cut you off, Kyle.
no, to your point, 2008 was a formative time, and we that was earlier in our careers, and dealing with a market collapse like that was very educational experience. Now that said, when I was mentioning that our executive team had over 100 years of experience, I mean, I'm serious about that. Our uncle had been working through the Depression, and I feel like one thing that we've gained from working with him over the years is, and whether this good or not, but is the feeling that that things will always change, and that there's always another shoe to drop. So I would say that even when times are good, we typically have this feeling of this is going to change, and we're going to have to deal with some bad times later on. So I don't want to say that we manage by pessimism necessarily, but I do think that we are certainly always trying to prepare for the lean times.
Do you want to address a challenge other than the lean times that are coming or year?
Well, I would say some challenges that have been formative for me are really some of the big projects we've tackled over the years that have been formative in the company. And the first big one I was really involved in was the cogeneration plant back in 2006 and 2007. And it's just those experiences when you really have to push hard to get a large scale project finished in an area that you don't necessarily have experience in. Those can be very educational moments. So I learned a lot through that project. I think we all did, as we were trying to basically write the pro forma. the business plan for that particular piece of our organization. And frankly, when we built the mass ply panel facility back in 2016 and 17, it was right around the same time that the president of our company, our father, became ill. So trying to put in a $35 million facility at the same time that you're dealing with some of those family issues was a challenging time, but ultimately successful.
Kyle, Tyler, it sounds like from your story, and thank you for sharing those deeper stories, kind of that come from the heart. I guess when we face challenges in our human nature, you could either give up and exit and throw in the towel, or persevere and get through it and push through it. So, because you're here today, you didn't throw in the towel. And why are you individually, again, if we maybe start with Kyle first this time, but Kyle, why are you a part of the wood world? Like, why wood for you?
For me, wood solves a lot of our societal issues. I really believe it is the win-win solution for a lot of our problems today. I think on the ecological or environmental front, I think forest management is the solution to the wildfire issues we've been having. It can help to address climate change issues that people are concerned about. I think this idea that we will always have a negative effect on the environment is mistaken. And that's something I feel pretty passionate about, that I really try to communicate to people, is that we really can have a beneficial effect on the environment at the same time that we're producing sustainable materials for the economy, generating jobs for rural communities that have really suffered in the past. And I think there's a big story to tell about the positive benefits of the wood products industry on the environment and our society.
I love that. Let's come back to that and unpack. That's a really big topic, and would love to jump head deep into that as well. But Tyler, can we hear from you first?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I absolutely love about wood is that we are able to do so much with it as a material, and there's so many consumer items that are produced out of it. But I've been in the business now for 25 years, and I'm still always learning something else about manufacturing with wood and some other products that people are making. And looking back at our development of the mass ply panel, which is really a unique product to the market at that period of time, even while cross-laminated timber was just a new product on the market, there were some significant hurdles in actually developing this type of product. It didn't come easy. We had some serious speed bumps and some hurdles, but I mean, frankly, the general concept worked out, and it was a really fun process in order to try and figure out how to make new things with wood, and specifically make a new configuration of product using all the different plant processes that we've had in place for the last 50 years. So wood is good. It's a fantastic material to work with. It's a fantastic material to build with, and we are building bigger structures at much higher quality than people have in the past. And I think we're just seeing the very beginning of this opportunity to build just amazing structures with wood.
That's fantastic. I can't thank you both enough for doing what you're doing, because you directly are manufacturing and producing these amazing wood products and innovating. Innovation is definitely something that, looking from the outside at your brand, your people, seeing you guys at trade shows, innovation is definitely a word that I would say describes you as an outsider looking in. But we come back to the innovation bit back as well. I mean, could we go back to Kyle? You talked about, there's a really big story you said here to tell about the positive benefits of the wood products industry as a whole, really, on, you said, environment, society. I mean, and there's a big negative connotation. Can we unpack that a little bit? What do you mean? What is the negative, and what's the true story here? Because you guys are boots on the ground doing it.
I think people have always looked at human activity out in the forest in particular, and just assumed that it's a zero-sum game. That if you're basically taking material out of the forest, that you're somehow doing harm. And I just don't believe that that's true. And in fact, I think what we've seen over the last 30 years, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, is that lack of human activity out in the woods has really generated and the conditions for some pretty drastic forest fires that affect not only the environment and the animals out in the environment, but also our local communities, which are really susceptible to wildfires as well. I mean, there was a significant human tragedy in our area back in 2020 during the Labor Day fires, where over 700 homes burnt and many families were displaced for years. And frankly, it's something that left a significant mark on that community that's still here today. So if we can really inform people that we can make a positive impact on the forest to reduce forest fires, to generate products that generate economic activity, and to make a lot of the stewardship and rehabilitation projects worthwhile. I mean, I really think it is a win-win situation for the environment and for us as a society. And one thing I also wanted to mention, as far as the innovation, we have always had a tremendous respect for the wood fiber that we use to generate our products with. And we always strive to do more with less. And I look at the history of our company, and frankly, a lot of wood products companies, and it's really the same way. You start out with say, a log cabin, and then people move to lumber manufacturing, and then all of a sudden a new product comes out like plywood, where you're generating veneer with a higher recovery than lumber mills can see, and that can use a smaller diameter timber. Then all of a sudden you're generating engineered wood products with specific engineered properties where people can design large structures from them. And then finally the mass timber evolution as well, where not only then are we using less material to generate enormous structures, but you're actually substituting for products like concrete and steel, which have a much higher environmental impact than wood products. So that innovation portion has been built into our industry for over 100 years, and I'm just excited to see all the products that people have developed these days out of wood.
I was going to ask if you could, Tyler or Kyle, if you could, we're talking about innovation, and you've mentioned a couple of different products and things you guys create, but can we kind of can one of you guys walk us through what are all the different types of products that your company, creates or develops or produces today and brings to market? And then answer the question for each one, what's the main application for that? If it's lumber, it's homes, and sort of like that. Just kind of curious, what's the wood product that you create or manufacture, and then what's its main use or uses?
Okay, well, when we pull the tree into the log yard, we will use the bark in order to create beauty bark, but we'll also take some of it and hog it into hog fuel to power a cogen plant. So those are two. Then we go into chips, which is a residual product. That's the leftover material after you peel what you can into usable product. Veneer is our primary product by volume. It's the highest volume product that we make. We typically sell that to almost any other West Coast manufacturing facility, whether they're producing plywood or LVL, LVL being laminated veneer lumber, specifically wood beams for, say, housing for headers and beams. So that's a great market for us. It takes a high quality veneer that's density graded. So on our second highest volume is that density graded veneer. Then we typically, in the past, we've made a lot of just commodity grade plywood panels. So this would be CDX grade that goes into housing starts for your floor, your walls, and your roof for a typical home. But now we're also qualified to make LVL as well, or structural composite lumber, in which we use the density graded wood in order to make the building blocks and components to our mass timber facility. So while now the mass timber portion really only accounts for, say, 10 to 15% of our overall volume, it's been growing every year, and it's obviously it's a niche that we're specifically involved in that most people aren't in the wood products industry. And so we're looking to make that portion grow as much as we can going forward.
And mass timber, for those who don't know, what is mass timber? And I know it's like a big buzzword right now, and we went to the big mass timber conference. What is mass timber? What does that mean for you guys? What portion do you play in the mass timber space? Can you unpack it?
Yeah, so we've essentially patented our own type of cross-laminated timber that's veneer-based or engineered veneer-based. So if you look at it, you would think that it's a very large format plywood panel. We can essentially make a panel that's up to 12 inches thick, 12 feet wide, and 48 feet long. And we essentially download the designs for an overall structure or building that people want built out of wood, and we will create every structural element to that building from the building blocks that we put in through the plant. So we can make the beams, the columns, the floors, the roof, the walls, just any portion of the structure that people want prefabricated, we'll make. And so the really cool thing about it is that we put it on these very large format CNC machines, and we pre-cut the panels so it turns into a unique panel for a unique building somewhere in the universe. And so it's a very specialized part at that point where we've already cut in all the electrical, the plumbing, the mechanical, everything that they need in order to make a typical structure is all going to be pre-designed and pre-cut into the panels prior to delivery.
So on that, our columns are actually even thicker than that. I mean, our panels can get up to 12 inches thick, but our columns, we can lay up to 24 inches thick. So imagine a column that's 24 inches thick by 48 inches wide and 48 feet long. That's really the extent of our manufacturing capabilities right now. But you think about an old growth tree that could have been that size, and really we're doing the same type of products but with small diameter timber. In fact, the veneer that goes into that product, the average diameter of those blocks going into that are about 9.5 inches. So we can then make extremely large wood elements out of very small trees.
Define what you mean by blocks.
So when we receive logs to the mill, a log is typically cut into, say, a 34 or 40 foot length, and then we'll block that log out. So we'll break it into 8-foot sections, and each 8-foot section we consider a block. So if you think about a tree standing up, of course you're gonna be thicker at the base, and then you're gonna have a significant amount of taper up to the top of the tree. Well, each log we'll separate in our log yard or out in the landing, where anything less than, say, about 13 or 14 inches is going to go to our small log plant, which really specializes in those MetroGuard density graded veneers that go into our engineered wood products. So the average diameter of those blocks is about 9.5 inches.
Thank you.
Whose idea was MPP?
I would say it's really ours. Kyle and I traveled to Europe back in 2015 in order to see exactly what this new thing was called cross-laminated timber. And frankly, I think we're just audacious enough to come back and think we could do it better than they were doing over in Europe. So we just immediately went to work on developing the processes in which we could make our material out of what we had available, which was veneer. And with working with Oregon State University at the time, we took some test panels down, proved that we could surpass the capacities and the design values of cross-laminated timber. And once you do that, and once we had the patent, it was kind of like, well, we either got to fish or cut bait and, either invest in the facility or let it drop. And luckily, we were able to convince all of our shareholders and had a lot of support from our father at that period of time in order to push through on a product that no one had even tried before. So it's been a unique experience from that standpoint.
That's wild.
Yeah, I will say that if we were sitting in a period of time where our veneer sales were just moving fast and our plywood sales were off the charts, we probably wouldn't have considered it. But adversity kind of forces you to innovate. And we were at a period of time where we're having difficulties moving our MetroGuard veneer, our density graded veneer. So Tyler mentioned, that he specifically said, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if we found a product that could use a lot of our density graded full sheet veneer into a higher value product?" And that's really what the nexus, or the start of the entire conversation. And then the trip to Europe, that really allowed us to wrap our heads around the fact that you can afford to use more wood in a panel like this, not because you're competing with stick frame construction in a residential market, but because you're competing with concrete and steel in large buildings. And that was really a light bulb that went off that really said, "Hey, this really does make sense. This is a market that we can tackle."
When you say compete, why do you position it that way?
Well, because at the end of the day, developers are going to be looking at cost of product in construction. And there's always been this idea that wood is going to cost more in construction than concrete and steel. But really, the fact is that people are just used to working in concrete and steel. So as time has gone on and there's been more case studies and things like that, I think we have been able to show that our product is cost competitive with concrete and steel and has all those additional other environmental benefits that haven't made sense. So, we are competing with other products on these projects, and we have to be competitive.
Yeah.
But it feels a whole lot better to compete with the concrete and steel manufacturers than to be cannibalizing market share from other wood products customer or companies.
What are you most proud of in terms of MPP projects or cases, things that you've proven within that space?
Or even more, like, can you share some examples of beautiful projects? Or can you share more about deployed MPP?
Yeah, we can. I mean, there's actually been some very, very cool projects that are going to be become more available soon. Number one is the Portland Airport. The PDX Airport, they completely replaced the T-core, the terminal core roof, with partly our product, but also products from Zippo laminators and some other forest products companies. And, we've been essentially delivering on that project for 3 years, and it's still not open to the public. So that will become open in August, and I can't wait for everyone to really get a look at what a fantastic, amazing structure this is. We did some really innovative stuff with wood on this one, where ZGF, the principal architect, just asked if we could come up with ways to do, say, large sweeps out of engineered wood. And so, we really went to the drawing board and came up with some very interesting solutions for some of the products they're looking for. A couple other ones that are really neat. We just finished our first 19-story structure down in Oakland, California, with a company called Oh Wow. Extraordinary customers to work with, great developers. But we ended up being able to put up to provide material for a project that went up in less than 4 months structurally for a 19-story mass timber structure. So that was pretty extraordinary as well. One that I haven't seen in person, but I'm looking forward to, is the Coronation Arena up in Edmonton. We essentially provided visual grade panels for an entire roof assembly for an arena up in Edmonton. So that's a beautiful structure as well. I've only seen pictures though.
Thank you for sharing. Kyle, any others that strike you? Or maybe not even limited.
About the Oh Wow building down in Oakland, California. Just because that's a particular design called a point supported slab that I think our product really performs well in. And that Coronation Arena, one thing I like about that is that those panels that we provided to that project are 2-inch panels. So that's a panel thickness that most CLT manufacturers can't hit. Most of them are limited to thicker panels than 2 inches. So I think that those 2-inch products have been very good for us. We can get out a lot of surface area with far less volume than other manufacturers.
Thanks for sharing, guys. Not to really take it to a whole nother level of conversation, but I'm kind of curious to switch it up and go personal on you for a little bit, as Jessica, you prepare the next series of questions. But guys, I remember the both of you a couple of years back and it was at the Mass Timber Conference in Portland, Oregon. And I remember walking around with a camera, taking pictures here and there. And I remember you all with your families and your wives showed up at the show. And I think you built that one observation deck, was it, upstairs? And I just saw how incredibly proud both of you were that your families were there with you. And I frankly was really enjoying playing ping pong at your booth there, where I met one of your family members who also was in charge of one of the leaders of your organization. And you guys both brought your children and your wives, and I'm sure I have 3 children myself, and married. And can you share some of that really personal insider, kind of like your feelings about this industry? And again, we heard why you're passionate about it, but now, is there a future here for your children to grow into the family business? What's the future of the wood? Is there opportunity to continue innovating? How do you see, like, give us some insight to, yes, there's challenges and there's adversity. I love, Kyle, how you said we grow through the adversity. And so you both have children and families, and I'm sure you want to leave a legacy. So what does that look like? What's the future look like for you?
Well, I've got 2 boys, one that's almost 18 and one that's almost 16. And, frankly, I look back at how rewarding this industry has been to me. And I would say that I'd love for them to have the same type of opportunity that I have had in the past, to be able to work with phenomenal people and to learn a lot. But what I think Kyle and I both tell our children is that the number one thing that you have to solve when you come to work for a family business is that you must be competent. You got to be a hard worker. You've got to be smart, and you've got to actually add value to the organization that you're working for. Even more so with the family business, because there's a lot of people looking at you to continue things on. So I think our goal would be that this is a business that not only lasts 100 years, but can last 200 years.
Wow.
We intend to be the last people standing. If Oregon decides that wood products are no longer where it wants to go, we really intend to turn out the lights. We don't want to be the first person that departs here. We want to fight the battle to make sure that people know that we're doing good things in the forest and we're creating good products out of wood, and that we're here to stick up for the rural communities in Oregon for the long term.
Thank you for sharing, Tyler.
So it's been a fantastic experience at that Mass Timber Conference to be able to bring our families. And that, number one, they've been there since we first began going to the conference. So we have pictures each year, and it's amazing to see how not only have our products grown, but our kids have grown even faster. Until now, we have a couple leaving for college. They went from throwing balls around the Mass Timber Conference and wrecking havoc to leaving for college over the period of time that we've been working on these products, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And ultimately what it comes down to is we are a family business, and we intend to stay a family business. And the only way we can do that is by making sure that there's opportunities for family to be involved. And like Tyler said, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we instill on the next generation that this isn't a gift to be taken lightly if they're interested in working for the business, that they really have to put in the time and effort, and they have to be competent. And that's really important to us, because it's not only us relying on that, it's the other shareholders and other family members that you have to look in the eye at the end of the day.
And while we're on the topic, go broader, just young people, going through middle school, high school, college. Are there opportunities in the wood products industry, and what advice do you have for younger generation? It's still potentially looked down upon, the wood industry, or killing trees, or clear cutting, all these negative terms. But are there opportunities in the wood world as you see it, and going into the future, not just for your own kids, but as the next generation grows up? What are those opportunities? Can you explain some of that?
Well, I think the range of abilities that our industry requires to be successful is just amazing. From not only the logging and cutting side of the operations, but we employ diesel mechanics, we employ millwrights, we employ electricians, foresters, cruisers, office staff. Really, it takes a wide variety of skills to keep this operation going. We're big proponents of trade schools. We support the local trade schools. We're intimately involved with them. We think there's a tremendous opportunity for kids these days to be able to, especially kids who might not be interested in college, to go directly into careers. And what we will actually fund education for areas that kids might be interested in learning more, whether it's like I said, being an electrician or millwright or anything else. So if the opportunities for kids these days are legion in our industry, and I think it could be a situation where they can find a career without having to go to college and end up with a load of student debt at the beginning of their life, of their career life.
I would actually add to that, if I just could real quick, is that, the technology is changing so much. I mean, we are implementing robots on a wide scale throughout our facilities, but even out in the woods, the harvesters and forwarders are, largely taking a lot of the heavy lifting away from, what is really one of the most dangerous jobs on earth, being a logger. So that's becoming much safer as well. And so the opportunity to use technology to make these jobs a lot more attractive is there, and it's coming, and we intend to be on the forefront of that. As far as what kids can do, I don't think kids or people realize how important every employee is to a company. What they can do is really make themselves essential. Show up, come to work, be early, don't do drugs, don't do stupid things, and at that point, companies just end up relying on you to such a degree that they feel your absence when you're gone. And that's exactly the sort of scenario where you really want these kids to understand that we need you, but you got to be there and make yourself dependable. And I think they can turn into a valuable person at almost any company.
Y'all are pretty well known within the industry for your outreach within the community, from the Freres Family Classroom to supporting probably everything under the sun in Lyons. Can you speak to how important that is, not only to the company, but as y'all as individuals, especially with children? Little eyes see everything.
Well, our grandfather was pretty visionary and set up a foundation decades ago, I think back in the 1970s. And that foundation still exists today, and we donate about $200,000 a year to primarily local causes, and we really try to keep the money local, because it's really the community that has supported us over the years. They're the employees that keep our plants running. They're our customers. They're our ardent supporters. So we care a lot about making sure that we're supporting the community that's supporting us. I think it's really interesting. We found an old time card of our grandfathers from back in the 20s. And it's really interesting to see that a lot of the names on the time card are names that we're familiar with today. So a lot of the families in the area have been around for 100 years and have been a part of the company since its founding.
Guys, I have another curveball for you. Tyler, without much thinking and deep thought here, if you could snap your fingers and solve one of the biggest issues that's in your roadblock for you in your path right now, what would that be? And it's solved tomorrow. And same thing for you, Kyle.
I really wish that people could, download our perspective on forest management and all the benefits that wood products provides all the way up and down the entire value stream, from safe, healthy, resilient forests to strong, vibrant, prosperous rural communities to, the truly extraordinary buildings of the future. Really, we just need to have a closer touch with the products we use and consume on a daily basis. We should look at our buildings from a forest to frame, and we should look at our forests as the gardens that we need to tend for the future.
Wow. And Kyle?
I wish I had a different answer than that, but really the reliability of timber supply is the biggest issue we face today. There's a lot of the other issues we can tackle. I mean, we've dealt with roadblocks and speed bumps in our production. We've dealt with manufacturing issues. We've dealt with sales issues. We're used to dealing with those issues. Those political issues that really touch our forest and how we interact with them are very important, and those are harder to communicate and fix.
I usually don't do this, and our team might want to cut this portion out, but I mean, our mission at Koval is exactly that. It's to improve the lives of the people in the wood industry globally. And the issues that you guys have just described, like, are really near and dear to our heart and why Koval exists. And that's what we do. If you could give us some advice, what could we do more, or how do we reach more people on your behalf, on industry's behalf, to really, I love that phrase you guys use is, I wish people could download our perspective. How can we at Koval, how do we get that download to people's perspectives in your community, in your state, in the United States, and really in our mission statement, it says to improve the lives of the people in the wood industry globally.
I think it's a great question. I think you're on the start to it just by having these types of podcasts and allowing people to give a little bit of a perspective on as far as where they're coming from. There's too much of a tendency out there to paint people in the timber industry as evil, as opposed to the stewards of our future resources. And I think it's these types of conversations that will hopefully open people's minds in the future, and maybe highlighting some of the amazing structures that are being built out there. I mean, when you guys get the opportunity to take some video at the Portland airport, I can't wait to see your podcast again.
Thank you. Let's do that.
So Tyler and I gave an interview at one point to somebody, and at the end of the interview, they were talking about the fact that, and this is a young person, far younger than we are, about how all the news that they hear is negative. That they wouldn't be surprised if the world ended 10 years from now due to all these catastrophic and environmental issues. And really, I think the message that we like to share is there's a lot of optimism out there that
Right.
technology can be a solution to a lot of our environmental issues. And this isn't necessarily rocket science. We don't have to invent a new product. In fact, Mother Nature has provided one of the most sustainable products for us out there, and we're finding new and innovative ways to use it to make the world a better place. And God willing, we're still going to be around 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 100 years from now. And the world will actually be a cleaner, more sustainable place than it is today, even. Particularly for our youth today. I think they've really been told by the UN Climate Council that really the world might end 10 years from now, and that would be a very depressing way to be entering your 20s and 30s, to believing that you really didn't have any opportunity. And I just think that that's a terrible thing to instill on our youth.
Totally. Guys, I think what you're touching on, and one of you just mentioned, the word that I love is subdue, or I think somebody just said steward, that terminology. I believe that comes from the Bible. And if we look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God commands us to fill the earth, and it says subdue it and have dominion over it. And I love the fact that you're actually doing that very practically and living that out, and making a really big and positive impact for your community. And then wherever your materials go and wherever they're used, you're making a beautiful impact. And I think there's really, what I love about our industry, your story, there isn't something that we got together and we agreed to before the podcast session, be like, don't go into this dark corner of our business. No, I think that's one of the coolest things here is we don't have anything to hide. You probably have a whole bunch of people touring your facilities, and you're proud to show that it's, every piece that comes into the logs, the the wood products that come in and out of your facility, that there isn't any waste and it all gets used. And I think we're all super proud of that. I'd love to amplify your story and what you're doing to steward your resources.
Well, we appreciate that very, very much. I mean, I think it's a story that we care about deeply.
Absolutely. Guys, if any last thoughts, comments, if you could have the microphone right now and speak to just the whole world or a large volume of people you want to reach, what would you tell them in one sentence? Give us that punchline, each of you. Go.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I was going to take more time to think about that.
All right. Well, I'll jump in and say what we really the construction of our mass supply panel facility is kind of been the start, but I think you're going to see some amazing things going forward as well. I mean, this one step to create a new patented product is really forcing that and the challenges of our day, which are labor issues, cost issues, environmental issues. Those are all forcing changes in our organization that we're trying to hit head on. We're spending a lot of money on research and development, and I think we'll see some dramatic changes in wood products technology over the next 5 years. So I'm excited to see what this one step in an innovative new product is going to do for the rest of our organization.
I love it. It's a huge sentence, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to expanding the types of buildings that we're involved in, and I see a ton of promise in modular going forward, so that we can produce housing at scale, at a much faster scale than has ever been produced, and a much more quality structure, and so it alleviates some of the housing difficulties, but also some of the disaster mitigation out there. So I think that we need to have partners that are thinking outside the box as far as how they build the buildings of the future, and we're happy to provide the materials for it.
I love it. With that,
our customers can be our biggest innovators. There's some people that are really trying to develop products out of mass timber that can compete with the lightwood framing and residential markets, and I'd love to see that develop.
I love it. Gentlemen, it is the top of the hour, and I'd love to say thank you to the both of you for your time, willingness, and passion for this industry, willingness to come onto this podcast and share your stories. I know you got to run, so thank you so much for your time.